welcome. Tonight, drama at the Lekki toll gate in Lagos as police disperse youths mocking the second anniversary of EndSARS protest. Amnesty International claims 40 of the protesters are still languishing in jail 2 years after EndSARS' second-year anniversary. Over 2,000 officers of the Nigeria Customs Service laid off after being found to have compromised the system. And airline operators kick against Ethiopia Airlines' 49% ownership of the Nigeria Air Limited. Plus, torrential rainfall compounds flooding problem in River State and Delta State. Governor Fanyokoa seeks more assistance for affected victims.
On business news tonight, Pension Transitional Arrangement Directorate says over 39 billion naira has been paid to pensioners of defunct Nikon Insurance.
On sports news tonight, Cristiano Ronaldo has been dropped for Manchester United's trip to Chelsea on Saturday after he stormed off before the conclusion of Wednesday's Premier League win over Tottenham.
And from the capital of the nation, federal government appeals judgment which freed the leader of the proscribed indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu. Senate Southeast Caucus cautions against move by the government, seeks a political solution.
And in international news from London, the UK's Prime Minister Liz Truss has resigned after just 44 days in office, making her by far the shortest-serving Prime Minister ever.
In what seems a reminder of scenes that played out at the Lekki Toll Plaza in Lagos on October the 20th, 2020, drama unfolded at the same spot today. Youths who had turned out to mark the second anniversary of the EndSARS protest, which took the nation by storm, were prevented from carrying out their procession in remembrance of the historic moment. Midway into the procession, the police released tear gas and water cannon to disperse the youth, saying they had earlier instructed them that it should be a moving procession. Our correspondent Shola Shoyede reports.
It's the second anniversary of the EndSARS protest and agitation by youths against police brutality in Nigeria on October the 20th, 2020. Members of the EndSARS movement arrived early at the Lekki toll gate area in Lagos for a scheduled remembrance walk for those who allegedly lost their lives during the protest in 2020. This time, their demands are limited and straight to the point.
There are people still in prison till today. We want them released. So all we are asking for is justice. That's all we want. That's why we're here. And of course, to honor those that have died, letting them know that we will never forget. The government set on the panel, and the panel confirmed the killings. The government, the panel made recommendations. Until date, none of those recommendations have been met.
I came here to join others to just remember our great heroes. These are the real heroes of Nigeria, modern-day Nigeria, not those who were drinking tea in London to get independence.
Keep moving! Sorry, sis, what do you want? Don't make it an unlawful gathering. Please keep on moving.
Their movement across the toll gate area, however, causes a stir and traffic congestion in the area.
So this coffee is not there.
An attempt by the crowd to move to the restricted area at the toll plaza changed the narrative. These anti-riot personnel arrived at the scene, releasing tear gas canisters. Hot water from the standby cannon chased them out of the area.
2020.
Mrs. Olabisi Abidin, an Akwa Ibom state-born Ndifreke Banga, says they lost their children during the 2020 EndSARS protest. While Olabisi explains that she has been compensated by the state government, Mrs. Ibanga alleges that her quest has all been in vain.
It's not just about dying, that's getting to confirm that getting to see the photo of the son being shot dead, and that since then he has not been able to see, or she has not been able to see his corpse, and the state of their well-being, that they've been struggling.
Back at the day's demonstration, a few persons were arrested and later released. They were all unanimous in their demands that they were here to celebrate the second anniversary of the EndSARS protest. They also called for the implementation of the EndSARS panel report, and they asked that those who were still in detention should be released. From the Lekki toll gate here in Lagos, Shola Sheyele reporting for Channels Television News.
So how exactly did we end up commemorating the EndSARS protests, a movement that defined the year of the pandemic in Nigeria? Our correspondent Jeffrey Uzono provides a background in this next report.
In the month of Nigeria's 60th anniversary in 2020, young people from across the board hit the streets to demand an end to police brutality, with a specific call for the disbandment of the Special Anti-Robbery Squad SARS, accused of perpetrating atrocities including extrajudicial killings. A movement triggered from an incident in Delta State after a young man was arrested, shot and left for dead allegedly by members of SARS, although the facts were disputed by the Minister of State for Labour, Festus Keyamo, in a tweet in which he said the boy was alive. Like wildfire, the protests that greeted the Warri incident spread to other parts of the country, with youths at the vanguard. It was a defining October as protesters in Lagos took things a notch higher, with daily convergence on the Lekki toll gate and other locations, calling for the implementation of what they termed 5 for 5. Demanding for the release of arrested protesters, justice for victims of police brutality, prosecution of erring police officers, retraining of former SARS members, and an increase in the salary of police officers. Not too long, the then Inspector General of Police Muhammad Adamu disbanded SARS.
As a responsive and citizen-oriented police force, it is hereby directed as follows. 1. The Special Anti-Robbery Squad of the Nigeria Police, otherwise known as SARS, is hereby dissolved across all formations, the 36 state police commands, and the Federal Capital Territory, where they currently exist.
And back in Lagos, the state government appealed to the protesters to disperse to enable it look into their demands. But the protesters, including some celebrities, refused to back down until they saw action. This was the rise of the Sorosoki movement.
For me, I would say it, the government messed with the wrong generation. So let me ask you, what do you want? What do you want? What's the prayer here right now? 5 for 5. Yeah, but the government is already responding to that. How many times have they responded? We need actions. We need action. We're going to be here until we start seeing action.
On the night of October 20th, 2020, with protesters defying an imposed curfew, things turned sour after soldiers invaded the Lekki toll gate to disperse the protesters, leading to casualty that became a subject of controversy till today. The fallout was outrage, condemnation, and even carnage as hoodlums cashed in on the situation, took to the streets to destroy and loot. Even police stations and officers were not spared. To consider the demands by the protesters, judicial panels on restitution for victims of SARS-related abuses and other matters were set up to bring closure, and recommendations were made to the state governments. And so far, some persons have been awarded various forms of compensation. 2 years after, on the second anniversary of the EndSARS protest, there are still unanswered questions. Have all the protesters been released? Has police brutality truly stopped? How many erring police officers have faced justice? Have the youths been truly pacified? Jeffrey Uzono, Channels Television News.
And with that reminder, Amnesty International claims that over 40 youths arrested during the protests are still languishing in prisons across Nigeria. It adds that panels set up to investigate police impunity have failed to deliver justice to hundreds of victims of police brutality. The human rights group, however, calls on authorities in the country to end the crackdown on peaceful protests and ensure that detained protesters are immediately and unconditionally released. Amnesty's call comes as other prominent Nigerians also weigh in on the aftermath of the protest.
October the 20th, 2020 is one day that will not be easily discarded in Nigeria's history, as youths under the hashtag EndSARS took to the streets in a nationwide protest against police brutality and human rights violations by security agencies. From Lagos to Ibadan and other parts of the country, the youths are unanimous in their demands. I bless Nigeria, my country, faithful, loyal and honest, serve Nigeria with all my strength. 2 years after, Amnesty International in a statement says it has discovered that the vast majority of EndSARS protesters arrested in October 2020 are still being arbitrarily detained without trial. Amnesty International insists that 2 years ago, the Nigerian army and police killed at least 12 people at Lekki Tollgate and in Alausa, Lagos State, while pro-government armed groups deliberately instigated violence at many EndSARS demonstrations in other parts of the country to serve as a pretext for the police to use lethal force on peaceful protesters. Rather than bringing those responsible for the attacks on protesters to justice, the authorities have engaged in a series of bizarre denials and cover-ups.
They cannot deny it.
This position is shared by a popular Christian cleric who believes that many youths lost their lives in the protest.
I saw the videos. People saw the videos. There was coverage all over the place. The British saw it. The Americans saw it. They cannot deny it. They cannot call us fools. No, they cannot. They cannot. The mortuaries were there. The hospitals were full of people, both wounded and shot. They cannot. So let them not try to deny it.
2 years after the incident, some lessons have been learned, especially as it pertains to the inclusion of young people in governance.
No party known to us has done or even tried to do what we've done in ensuring that the youth are empowered to have a level playing ground. Right? One, those of us who were behind, they're not too young to run, are predominantly APC members. I was one of them.
Democratic dividends belong to those who can claim it, and civil liberties belong to those who can take it. EndSARS was an indication that Nigerians could do this. It was a time to be sharing pride of nationhood.
Amnesty International believes that the fact that nobody has been brought to justice over the torture and killings of EndSARS protesters is a stain on Nigeria's human rights records.
In part two, after the break, former Attorney General of Lagos State, Olasupo Sasore, gets 50 million naira bail after pleading not guilty to 4 counts of money laundering. That's in a moment. Do stay with us. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television. Here's a reminder of our top stories. Drama at the Lekki Tollgate in Lagos as police disperse youths marking second anniversary of EndSARS protests with tear gas. Amnesty International claims 40 of protesters are still languishing in jail 2 years after. Over 2,000 officers of the Nigeria Customs Service laid off after being found to have compromised the system. Airline operators kick against Ethiopia Airlines' 49% ownership of the Nigeria Air Limited. Nigeria Air ownership row. And the UK's Prime Minister Liz Truss resigns after just 44 days in office, by far the shortest serving Prime Minister ever. And to the weekly ministerial briefing, where over 2,000 officers of the Nigerian Customs Service have been laid off and prosecuted after being found to have compromised the system. This is according to the Controller General of the Nigeria Customs Service, retired Colonel Hamid Ali. He said that the fight against smuggling has assumed a more sophisticated dimension, adding that the service is procuring more aircraft to check smuggling across the borders in collaboration with the Nigerian Air Force. Our State House correspondent, Gloria Mezoke, has more.
Operations within the Nigerian Customs Service came to the fore as the Comptroller General, Mr. Hamid Ali, addressed the media at the State House ministerial briefing. Reforms, restructuring of the service and raising revenue have been central to the mandate given to the Comptroller General of Customs. In the quest to halt smuggling, the Customs CG is doubling down on culprits and their accomplices.
Since we took over, I can not even a percentage. I'll tell you, over 2,000 plus officers have been sacked out of the service. Within these 7 years, we have sacked more officers than Customs has ever done, because we dismiss them. After dismissal, we make sure that we prosecute you. We take you to court and we'll get you prosecuted and jailed.
He admits that smuggling had assumed a more sophisticated dimension, but the service is not resting on its oars, particularly for smuggled goods such as foreign rice.
This rice does not preserve itself. They use chemicals to preserve it so that it looks fresh at any given time. So this is where the problem is. And that's why you find a 22-year-old, 25-year-old having colon cancer.
He further explains that the seized rice are distributed to IDPs.
Once we get these seized items forfeited, then we distribute it. We give a section to the IDPs and then a section to the Ministry of for Humanitarian. After certification by NAFDA, we do not give, and it is the only area where we allow foreign rice to be consumed.
The challenge of porous borders persists, and for this reason, the service aims to invest more in technology.
You cannot reverse technology. Once you take that discretion out of the hands of the human beings, once you remove that contact from person to person and use electronic, that cannot be reversed.
So far, he states that the service has generated 2.143 trillion naira out of the projected 3.019 trillion. The Customs CG also assures that a fully modernized service, which implies paperless operations, speedy clearance and processing, etc., will boost the nation's revenue as well as significantly bring to a decline the importation of illicit goods. Now, this whole automated service, he says, will require about $3.8 billion investment. From the presidential villa, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
And to legal matters, where the former Attorney General of Lagos State, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Olasupo Shashore, has been granted bail in the sum of 50 million naira with one surety, who must be a serving director or permanent secretary in the state civil service. Justice Chukwuje Kwaneke of the Federal High Court also ordered that his travel passport be deposited with the court registrar. The court then ordered his release to his team of lawyers, led by senior advocates Adeyemi Candidate Johnson, Dr. Maurice Banire, Segun Ajibola, and Chijoke Okoli, before adjourning his trial to November the 24th, 2022. Before the court gave its ruling on bail, the defendant had been arraigned before it on a 4-count charge of money laundering. In the charge, the EFCC alleged, amongst other things, that Mr. Shashore induced a former legal director in the Petroleum Ministry, Olufolakemi Adetore, with a cash payment of $100,000. He pleaded not guilty to all the counts. Channels Television Judiciary correspondent Shola Shirley has, however, gathered that Mr. Shashore will face a fresh arraignment tomorrow before Justice Mojisola Dada of the Lagos State High Court. The charge essentially borders on corruption of a public official. Mr. Shashore will also subsequently face a third charge, which is pending before the Federal High Court, Abuja. In another court matter, Justice Inyang Ekwo of the Federal High Court Abuja will, on January the 27th, 2023, hear a case instituted by the coalition of northern groups seeking a referendum to determine the fate of Biafra and other separatist organizations in Nigeria. The adjournment comes after the court gave all interested parties time to adopt their processes.
Justice Inyang Ekwo's courtroom at the Federal High Court is filled to its capacity with lawyers and members of the public as they await the arrival of the judge to commence the day's proceedings. The coalition of northern groups had, in June last year, taken the National Assembly and the Attorney General of the Federation to court, seeking to stop the Constitution review exercise and, in its place, conduct a referendum to determine who remains part of Nigeria. Over the months, various ethnic groups have filed applications for joinder as interested parties. At the day's proceedings, the presiding judge, Justice Inyang Ekwo, fixed 27th January 2023 to hear all the applications, pending applications for joiner.
16 parties were added, and then between the last adjourned date and today, there are a lot of people who have filed application for joinder. We are unable to ascertain some of them because we only saw them in court introducing the application that they have filed application for joinder. Because we don't have the processes, the court have to adjourn to enable us to have the processes and then respond appropriately, and then the matter was adjourned to 27 January 2023.
The Council for the Ibom Nation and the Dijo Group speak on the reason for joining the suit.
If there will be such referendum, we want to be identified on our own, not to be part of any other ethnic nationality, because we have different culture, we have different identity, and that is just what we are talking about. So if it's still going to be one Nigeria, it has to be one Nigeria. But if there will be any reason for Nigeria to be divided, we want to have our own identity.
In our processes, we have brought to the fore the untold oppression, suppression, repression the Ijos have suffered from this first union called Nigeria, which Lord Lugard in 1914 forcefully conscripted us into.
According to the coalition of northern groups, their suit is to stem what they call the tide of violence being allegedly done by the agitation for the cessation.
It's now time for more stories from our Abuja studios. Terry Kumi is ready. Terry, it's over to you.
We're staying with the judiciary. The federal government has filed an appeal against the Court of Appeal judgment which freed the leader of the proscribed indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu, at the Supreme Court. The government is asking the apex courts to stay execution of the appellate court's judgment delivered on October the 13th. In the 7-ground motion of appeal, the federal government faulted the decision of the Court of Appeal and also urged the Supreme Court to set it aside. It contends further that the appellate court erred when it struck out the pending charge against Kanu on the grounds that the trial court no longer possessed the jurisdiction to continue the trial because of the way Kanu was returned to the country after he jumped bail. No date has been fixed for hearing of the appeal. Meanwhile, the Southeast Caucus of the Senate is urging the federal government to obey the appeal court's judgment on Mr. Kanu. Addressing Senate correspondents on behalf of the caucus in Abuja, the Senate Minority Whip, Senator Chukwuka Otazi, said President Muhammadu Buhari should intervene and stop the appeal at the Supreme Court to prevent varied interpretations. He adds that it is injurious to the unity and corporate existence of the country.
Of course, we are working in sync with our people, working in sync with the mood of the moment that the federal government, tries to look into this matter of Nnamdi Kanu so that we can avoid being legalistic. Let's adopt political solution to it. When the Ohaneze visited Mr. President, he said he never wanted to interfere with a matter that is in court. Now that the court has ruled, we are just asking, pleading with him to prevail upon the Attorney General of the Federation from taking this matter higher to the Supreme Court. He can just allow the sleeping dog to lie and allow Nnamdi Kanu to walk free.
Away from the courts, residents of some flooded communities in Rivers State have continued to make efforts to salvage their farm produce as the flood water increases. However, their efforts appear to be frustrated by torrential rainfall, which shows no sign of abating. Despite this, the Rivers State government seems not to be relenting in its efforts to deliver more relief items to the internally displaced persons.
The situation is pathetic and dangerous, but some residents of flood-impacted areas in Rivers State appear courageous to brace against the disaster amid heavy rainfall to harvest farm produce and save some more properties. The flood in 4 local government areas bordering Bayelsa State is said to be the worst in a decade. Some residents are said to still be trapped in their homes in Abua Odua local government area as damage to properties and livelihood becomes massive by the day.
The Mungan houses, they have not even come out. They are just trying to fix themselves where they have islands.
The flood has taken over all farm crops, all the farms, crops and whatever, nowhere to sleep. There's no way to do it. Nothing. Houses are falling.
Despite the difficulty of driving on the road, the Rivers State government continues on a second day to deliver more food items, even in the rain, to displaced persons in IDP camps. And as displaced persons adapt to a new environment, the state government is urging personal hygiene to avert a health crisis.
We have just a day here. Come day safe. The chairman don't try well. Make una try to clean here one a day, I beg. If any person is sick, make a report. Doctors they will come here. Some don't already arrive. Others they come. People will go show them what I go do. Also there.
The government is also concerned about the protection of the most vulnerable people in times of disasters.
We have women in the IDP camp. We have a special concern for them. And in fact, the initiative of bringing the mobile clinics is because of the women and the children.
The Rivers State government is not only supplying food items, but releasing money for other running costs, as the Flood Management Committee promises adequate utilization of the 1 billion naira disaster support fund approved by Governor Nyesom Wike.
Flood situation across the country when the news at 10 returns. Plus, the Pension Transition Arrangements Directorate says over 39 billion naira has been paid to pensioners of the defunct Nikon Insurance. That's on business news. To join us again. Back to the news at 10, let's return to the flooding across the country. Governor Ifeanyi Okowa of Delta State is asking for more assistance in tackling the challenges arising from the flooding of communities in the state. He made the plea as he continued his assessment of internally displaced persons camps in various parts of the state, including the camp in Ole under the administration of Desopadek. The governor also thanked some well-meaning Nigerians for responding swiftly by providing accommodation for the flood victims.
It's a difficult task getting to the IDP camp in Kwale, Ndokwa West local government area of Delta State. Flood waters cover parts of the Ughelli-Asaba Expressway at several points, disrupting movements for Governor Ifeanyi Okowa and his entourage. Despite the bumpy ride, the governor finally arrives to an excited crowd who have taken refuge here since they were displaced from their homes. After words of encouragement, it's off to other camps in Ozoro. And despite the rain, the St. Michael's camp in Ole, managed by the State Interventionist Agency, Desopadek.
I want to use this opportunity to thank all those who have been able to donate food items and other items to the various camps. And I call on all Deltans and even non-Deltans who live in Delta that they should come forth and support. Whatever government is doing, it's necessary to support them. And I think that there is a need to do that.
Desopadek has expressed concern about the safety of the residents who are reluctant to leave their homes.
a lot of people cannot leave their community to the holding camps. This food we are providing today is for the community president general, the chairman of the party, the councillor representing the area, to take home to give to their people so that at least they have little food to eat.
The Delta government has promised to continue to support the victims to reduce the harsh and negative impact of the floods.
Well, that's all from Abuja. Back to you, Millicent.
Thank you, Terry. We continue here in Lagos. This time a story coming in from Delta State, a story building housing a popular supermarket in Asaba, the capital, has collapsed. According to an eyewitness account, some of the occupants of the building, when it caved in, sustained various degree of injuries and have been taken to hospital for treatment. The secretary to the state government, Mr. Patrick Uka, who was on site to inspect the level of damage caused by the collapse, confirmed that about 7 people were injured. He, however, calls for calm and that investigations are ongoing.
Both up and down.
To other stories, Vote Wisely in 2023 convene another national conference to discuss the restructuring of the country and ensure that the legislative arm of government has no part to fix its own salaries. These were part of the recommendations put forward by the Bishop of the Ilesha Diocese of the Anglican Communion, Professor Dapo Ashaju, at a public lecture in Lagos on perspectives and insights to transform Nigerian politics. He says for the elections next year to be free and fair, Nigerians must do all they can to check election rigging and other vices that could mar the process. The event was organized by the Bishop Kola Onolapo Foundation.
As we approach the forthcoming 2023 general elections, it is imperative that people come out to vote, do all within their powers to check election rigging, and vote for good candidates who have passion and the know-how on how to run this country. It is a shame that neighboring Benin Republic and Ghana, they run better government that provide good roads, state electricity. They have more civil law enforcement agents and more decent public service than the so-called comatose diet of Africa. There is a need to call another national conference to restructure Nigeria. Within this process, the salaries of legislators should be slashed drastically, and the power to fix their own salary should be withdrawn from them. Legislative business should be changed from full-time job to part-time. Let the people be voted in, simply continue their respective job and businesses at home. Let them come quarterly to meet. We will pay them certain allowances and let them get back to their work. They should be paid allowances for doing this. If this is done in advance, people who are ready to serve will come out, and those who cannot accept that time will not come in there. The cost of running government should be drastically reduced. The number of political appointees should also be drastically reduced to just the essential ones. Waste of resources should be curtailed. It is abnormal for legislators to turn themselves into executive roles, collecting constituency funds for physical development of their areas. Their role should be limited to simply oversight and legislation, not awarding contracts. The cost of maintaining the president and the governors is scandalous and fraudulent.
And the president has given approval for the director in the Delta State Office of the Niger Delta Development Commission, NDDC, Mr. Emmanuel Audu Uwaburua, to take over the duties of the managing director of the commission in acting capacity. But this follows the disengagement of the NDDC interim administrator, Mr. Effiong Akwa, by President Muhammadu Buhari with effect from today. The Minister of Niger Delta Affairs, Mr. Omana, in a letter informing Mr. Audu Uwaburua of his appointment, explained that he will hold the position pending the appointment of a substantive MD and governing board of the commission. Earlier, the ministry had explained in a statement that the president had also approved the constitution of a new management team and governing board of the NDDC, whose names will be transmitted to the National Assembly for approval. Mr. Akwa was appointed by the president as NDDC interim administrator in December 2020 for the duration of the forensic audit of the operations of the NDDC, which is now set to have been concluded. to the aviation sector, where airline operators in Nigeria have expressed concerns over the proposed national carrier Nigeria Air, scheduled to kick off operations in December 2022. At a meeting with the House of Representatives and the Ministry of Aviation, the airline operators questioned the partnership with Ethiopia Airlines, which ceded only 5% of the national carrier to the federal government. However, the Minister of Aviation says the process was well thought out, as government does not do well in business. Our correspondent Terry Kumi has more.
With the national carrier proposed to kick off before the end of the year, lawmakers questioned the partnership agreement between the federal government and Ethiopian Airlines, which would be operating the Nigeria Air. The partnership agreement gives Ethiopian Airlines 49% of Nigeria Air, 46% to Nigerian investors, and 5% to the federal government.
Why 5%? Because in the wisdom of the ministry and all of us who are steering this project, we do not believe that government having control over a business will do well. We've seen it in the past. We've seen how Nigeria Airways went to West.
We are talking about a country, Ethiopia. They are our competitors. They are competing with us. Whether we are doing well or we're not doing well, they are competing with us. This is an African continent, and we are offloading our BASA to Ethiopia.
In the structure of government, there will have to be a partnership with one strong airline or another. And I think I think Nigeria is even lucky that we are having Ethiopian to partner with us because they are African airline. And with it, yes, I am saying because this is within the spirit. I am saying it boldly. I am putting on record in this house, in this people's house, I am putting on record that I'm bold to say, I'm proud to say that I'm partnering with an African.
While the airline operators say they do not oppose the idea of a national carrier, they, however, advise against the partnership with Ethiopian Airlines.
Ethiopian Airlines today has a footprint in 9 different African markets if we include Nigeria. When you look at that, the footprint they have all over the place, what Ethiopian is trying to do in essence is to make sure they have a hold on the largest aviation market in the continent, to be able to project and propel themselves, not Nigeria.
We need to be carried along. If there are places we have reservations, please look at those reservations. Let us come together, it's not too late. Let us come together, Honorable Minister, and look at those issues.
They're not going to bring their staffs. They are going to go to Air Peace. They're going to go to Asman. They're going to take all these staffs. What are they going to do? Kill the airline.
What NCA had done, and NCA now is an institution, it's nothing to do with Musa. So what they have done now, they have created, they even issued an AOL, Air Operator's Letter, to stop poaching.
With Nigeria Air expected to kick off operations within 2 months, the concerns raised by the airline operators and members of the House Committee on Aviation would need to be urgently addressed to allay further fears and avoid destabilizing the aviation industry. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
And efforts to combat tuberculosis and HIV/AIDS in Nigeria just got an additional boost as the Abdul Samad Rabiu initiative, also called ASR Africa, donates $500,000 towards combating these diseases in the country. The first round of the intervention targets 7 states, including Lagos, Katsina, and Kano. Chief Executive Officer of EndSARS Africa, Mr. Ubon Udo, says the initiative is part of the efforts of the founder to find local solutions to Nigeria's public health challenges.
On this roundtable, the management of Abdul Samad Rabiu Initiative, also known as ASR Africa, and officials of the USAID sign an agreement that will impact the lives of millions who suffer from tuberculosis and HIV/AIDS in Nigeria. USAID is the implementing partner in this intervention as ASR Africa donates $500,000 to combat tuberculosis and HIV/AIDS in the country. The intervention is part of the efforts of the founder of ASR Africa to encourage local solutions to public health challenges in Nigeria.
Today's event with ASR Africa aligns very much with this strategic approach, which aims similarly to the mission of your chairman to build the country's capacities to achieve and sustain development goals and encourage local solutions.
We've been very busy in trying to see how we can add value in Nigeria and across the continent. But like I was saying earlier, I believe this donation actually is to ourselves because we are the beneficiaries. The Nigerian people are going to be the beneficiaries of the intervention.
The project will ensure the renovation of treatment centers, procurement of laboratory equipment, and the provision of dignity kits to survivors of gender-based violence in Nigeria. The Chief Executive Officer of ASR Africa explains the choice of USAID as implementing partner.
We know that USAID has an unbelievable record, high impact in dealing with HIV and tuberculosis. There's no better partner we could pick to work with on HIV and tuberculosis. We know that there's still gaps. The country has done a lot. Nigeria has done a lot to intervene, partnering with USAID and other agencies, but we know that there's still gaps, and these gaps need to be filled, and we're doing our bit to fill those gaps.
Nigeria bears a heavy burden of HIV/AIDS and tuberculosis, with an estimated 140,000 new cases reported annually, which is a reason why ASR Africa says it's stepping in to scale up interventions.
And for business news now, here's Anne Wilder.
Thank you, Millicent. Hello and welcome to Business News. The Pension Transitional Arrangement Directorate says that it has successfully completed the liquidation of the outstanding 56 months inherited pension liabilities for pensioners of the defunct Nikon Insurance and the balance of 49 months owed to ex-workers of Delta Steel Company. Addressing a news conference in Abuja, the Executive Secretary of PTAD, Mrs. Chioma Ejikeme, states that the inherited unfunded liabilities for defunct agencies at inception were at the tune of over 95 billion naira. Nigeria LNG Limited has reacted to reports that operations at its facilities in Bonny, River State has been shut down on Monday due to flooding. In a statement, NLNG clarifies that none of its assets on Bonny Island or in any of its host communities are impacted by the flood. The company adds that its plant is still in operation, though at a limited capacity due to reduced gas supply from some of its upstream gas suppliers. NLNG says that it is now working with all critical stakeholders to mitigate the impact of the flood on product deliveries. Now let's head to the equities market, where it made a slight rebound in today's trading session. Investors of Lafarge Africa, Jeffrey Uzon has the details.
Hello and welcome to Stock Market Report. A weak win, but still a win at the NGX as the all-share index inches up 0.03%. Gladly for me, the bull has made a comeback. Well, looking at the activity chart, we see that the value, volume, and deals all unilaterally in the red. But let's take a look at the counters for the gainers who are responsible for today's appreciation. CWG Computer Warehouse Group appreciating by 9.59% in the share price, as well as Japol 7.69%. But who were the biggest hit on the losers counter? Better Glass 9.98% loss, a dip right there for them. Well, it's a green close, not so convincing, but we'll take it. That's the Stock Market Report. I'm Jeffrey Uzama. It's back to you.
And that's Business News. Thank you for watching. I'm Anne Nwawadu. It's back to you, Millicent.
Thank you, Anne. Prime Minister Liz Truss has resigned as UK Prime Minister and leader of the Conservative Party. Speaking outside Downing Street, she said she could not deliver the mandate on which she was elected. Here's Simon Pusey with more on this and other international news and around the world in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. The UK's Prime Minister Liz Truss has resigned after just 44 days in office, by far the shortest-serving Prime Minister ever.
I came into office at a time of great economic and international instability.
Announcing her resignation outside Downing Street in a televised statement earlier, she said she couldn't deliver the mandate on which she was elected. Trouble began when her first Chancellor, Kwasi Kwarteng, spooked the financial markets with his mini-budget in September. Truss's premiership came under renewed pressure after the Home Secretary resigned and a chaotic vote happened on fracking.
Given the situation, I cannot deliver the mandate on which I was elected by the Conservative Party. I have therefore spoken to His Majesty the King to notify him that I am resigning as leader of the Conservative Party. This morning I met the chairman of the 1922 committee, Sir Graham Brady. We've agreed that there will be a leadership election to be completed within the next week. This will ensure that we remain on a path to deliver our fiscal plans and maintain our country's economic stability and national security.
There will be a Conservative leadership election to be completed within the next week, so let's have a quick look at who could be the UK's next Prime Minister.
Please welcome Rishi Sunak.
Britain's former Finance Minister, Rishi Sunak, was the most popular candidate among Conservative lawmakers, but those who remain loyal to Boris Johnson would likely oppose him.
If I can compare it...
A former Defence Secretary, Penny Mordaunt, was a passionate supporter of leaving the EU. She won plaudits for her performance in Parliament on Monday when she defended the government, even as it reversed most of its policies. And then there's the former Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, but some closest to him say at the moment he is more interested in making money on the speech circuit than returning to frontline politics. However, the Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, has demanded a general election.
Well, what a mess. And this is not just a soap opera at the top of the Tory party. It's doing huge damage to our economy and to the reputation of our country. And the public are paying with higher prices, with higher mortgages. So we can't have a revolving door of chaos. We can't have another experiment at the top of the Tory party. There is an alternative, and that's a stable Labour government. And the public are entitled to have their say, and that's why there should be a general election.
Ukraine's national energy company has urged Ukrainian citizens to charge everything because of expected power cuts caused by Russian missile strikes. Energy plants were hit by Russian missiles again, part of a wave of such strikes since the 10th of October. Outages of up to 4 hours at a time will affect the whole country, the grid operator has said. Images posted on social media showed debris and vehicles ablaze on the streets in Chad's capital, N'Djamena. It's after anti-government protesters ransacked and torched the party headquarters of Chad's newly appointed Prime Minister, Saleh Kebzabo. The vast military-run Central African nation has been on edge since the sudden death in April 2021 of President Idris Deby, who ruled with an iron fist for 3 decades. There has been resistance to a transitional military council headed by Deby's son, who took power after the president's death and pushed back elections to October 2024. Traders in the Ghanaian capital Accra have begun several days of strike action in protest against worsening economic conditions. Streets were quiet in the normally bustling heart of Accra's central business district as traders in the Ghanaian capital closed their shops to protest worsening economic conditions. Ghana's currency has fallen sharply in value this year and annual inflation has climbed to 37%. The government is in the process of negotiating a support package with the International Monetary Fund, but some merchants say that help is not coming fast enough.
I have to pay tax. I have to pay rent bill. The percentage I have. So many taxes I have to pay. And today, if I have in a shop, I open this shop up.
And the biggest football spectacle in the world is now just 1 month away. The World Cup kicks off on the 20th of November as Qatar take on Ecuador at the Al Bayt Stadium in Al Khor. 32 teams will be competing to dethrone the holders France, who won the 2018 World Cup in Russia. This year's World Cup is the first to be held in a Middle Eastern country. Qatar has faced intense criticism from human rights groups and media over its treatment of migrant workers. It is the smallest country to have hosted soccer's global showpiece. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel Studios in Lagos.
Thank you, Simon. Welcome to Sports News. The governor of Delta State, Ifeanyi Okowa, is confident all ongoing projects for the 21st National Sports Festival will be completed by November the 18th, 10 days to the start of the multi-sports event in Asaba, the state capital. The governor, who earlier today inspected ongoing projects in the state capital, says he is satisfied with the quality of work done so far. Governor Okowa says the state is prepared and the reigning champions is hosting to win. Nigeria's under-17 girls, the Flamingos, are aiming to break their quarter-final jinx at the FIFA Under-17 Women's World Cup when they face the United States on Friday at 12 p.m. Nigerian time. The under-17 guests have failed to reach the semi-finals in 6 previous editions, and they say they are set to end the country's 14-year wait for a last 4 berth on their 4th quarter-final appearance. The Flamingos lost narrowly 2-1 to Germany in their first match of the competition, but have since overcome stage fright and were worthy 4-0 and 2-1 winners over New Zealand and Chile in the group phase. Now, Cristiano Ronaldo has been dropped for Manchester United's trip to Chelsea on Saturday after he stormed off before the conclusion of Wednesday's win over Tottenham. Ronaldo was named among the substitutes against Spurs as United stormed to an impressive 2-0 victory over Antonio Conte's side thanks to goals from Fred and Bruno Fernandes. Erik ten Hag's decision not to bring Ronaldo on prompted a public display of frustration as the 37-year-old walked down the Old Trafford touchline and up the tunnel before the full-time whistle. And that's it on Sports News. I'm Victor Matthias. Thank you for watching. It's back to Millicent with the wrap of the news at 10.
Thank you, Victor. And the main news again. It was a day of drama at the Lekki toll gate in Lagos today as the police dispersed some youths marking the 2nd anniversary of EndSARS protests with tear gas, just as Amnesty International claimed that 40 of the protesters arrested 2 years ago are still languishing in jail. That's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Millicent Nwaka. Have a good night and stay safe.